Welcome to a special edition of Waiver Watch. We are going to recap some of the most awesomeness, yes, you heard that correct, waivers of 2019. And we will go through some totals, some percentages, get really into the weeds about the numbers and the current state of approvals for the FAA. This will be our episode 11 on January 26th, 2020. Boom.
Yeah. So this is a good one. We've got kind of a historical look at waivers from the past, 4 years now. 107's been a thing, and then we'll kind of just dive into some of the categories. So where to even begin here? Let's just talk about year over year, huh?
Yeah. Let's just look. Yeah. So we got a nice chart on our website that you guys can go to and take a look of. We'll maybe post this chart on our Facebook as well.
Yeah, definitely have to look at the website this time. There's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, but easily enough, 2016, complete dud. But we were working with a,
it's really only a quarter year.
Yeah.
Regulations came out August 29th of 2016, so no surprises there.
2017, a great year with 1,057 waivers approved. What about 2018 with 948 waivers approved? So it went down, which is interesting. But Jakee, hit us with the 2019 totals.
Yeah, 2019 was their best year yet, 1,275. So that's a 34.5% increase over 2018. So good work, waiver team. It's good stuff. And we'll have to really look at the number. I don't know if you remember this off your head. What was the last waiver that we got in 2019? Do you remember that number? It was like 6,000 something like 6,800. Yeah. Give or take.
So there were 6,800 waivers that were either in draft form or that got submitted. So the total number of unique numbers given for waivers in 2019 was somewhere in the upper 6,000s.
Yeah.
So
I guess the really quick math of that is like...
sixth of those.
How many... I was just going to say, how many got actually approved? Like 18%, roughly.
18%. Yeah.
So 18% of all potential or submitted waivers were approved, which I guess that's better. Previously, we've had like a 90% in mind, that get denied. So... Maybe the industry's getting smarter, or the FAA is getting nicer. I don't know. But,
combination of both. Yeah. So let's roll into the second portion of the combo here with a comparison of the individual regulations waived year over year. Yeah. And interestingly enough, 107.29 absolutely blows all other waivers out of the water. So
no questions asked. We have an interesting stat here. So since 2016, 95% of all waivers granted have been daylight. 107.29. So that's a pretty astonishing stat.
Yeah. So if you haven't got that waiver, why don't you hit up 107waivers.com, hit up our night training, and you can be part of that 95% of all waivers granted.
Yeah.
So, very easy to get. It's definitely the best waiver to kind of cut your teeth on and get through the process. So, anyways, moving on to the next. So, if we take out the night waivers and normalize 2019, there is another outlier in this bunch, and it is 107.39A, which, what is that all about, Jakee? Ops.
Yeah, that's ops over human beings, not moving vehicles, just the human beings part. So we really have, I guess we were going to hit on this later, but we really have Para Zero and the North Dakota IPP team to, I'll say, kind of thank for that. Almost, it really didn't start until like halfway through 2019. So that's maybe even the more impressive part.
Right.
The whole surge happened really in kind of the last 2 quarters of the year. The IPP team got some waivers going with that. So,
right. Do you remember? I remember like Avi posting, a stat number like in the middle of the summer, right? Like as Para Zero was getting more and more waivers, Avi would hit up the commercial SUAS group that we're part of and, give us the climbing number, the climbing total. And I haven't seen that number change for a while now, or a public, burst from pair zero to really, claim a stake to their stats, their increase in stats. But
yeah, right. They had a kind of a surge, and then we keep track every week. It seems like maybe once they have maybe one or two waivers every week in the last couple months. So maybe that initial, the initial like technology adopters kind of got their fill, and now it's how do we convince the rest, right? How do you convince everybody else to get this waiver or buy a parachute? So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. So
maybe some other stats. So in 2019, so this is all compared to 2018, there was a 26% increase in daylight ops. Pretty good. A 227% increase in what we call BV loss waivers. That's 107.31 and 33. Actually, a 15% decrease in 107.35. That's multiple small UAS to one pilot. 700, like we said, 720% increase of 107.39A. So that was a huge one. And what about that last one there?
Yeah, what's the total here? It's like, is it 72?
72, yeah.
72. So we got a 720% increase, but the total number granted was just 72 in 2019. So
yeah,
you have to really understand the percentage number, but then also like another big one is the 107.51B, which is the altitude, and that was a 750% increase compared to 2018.
Yeah. No, you're right. Still pretty small numbers, but when you look at previous years, it's quite a jump. So
it's 30 of those 107.51Bs were granted in 2019,
which is altitude, operating above 400 feet. So
correct.
Yeah.
So moving down, we have a nice pie chart that throws all of the waivers in 2019 into a nice, beautiful pie chart. And you can see here the orange is dominating, which is the 107.29, which is the daylight operations. And that is with a 1,155 total approved in 2019.
So to hit on that quick, that's only 90% of the total waivers granted in 2019. So it's a lot, no question. But if you remember our previous stat of 95% is the average, it actually went down a little bit, which to us signifies a little bit, there's a little more spread on the waivers that are being granted. We're starting to see these other regulations get waived more and more, which is good. So
and also, like let's think about the early adopters, right? The people that want to get the night waivers, they're getting them. It's an easy waiver to get, so they're getting them right away. So maybe we're on that that bell curve where we're actually sliding down on the night waiver approval. So the people that want them already have them, and we're only going to be picking up a few more. But it's good.
Oh, hold on. Yeah. So so the waivers, 107. Most of those 107.29s are probably 4-year approvals.
So we'll see a surge again.
We may actually see, I guess, maybe not. Let's see. So 2016, maybe not this year, but maybe next year,
2021,
we'll see a surge again of renewals from that 2017 batch. So that's actually could be interesting.
Yeah. Well, and then when it comes that time, we can do like a kind of a comparison to the night waivers approved in that year versus the 4-year renewal period, and let's see, are they maintaining? Are they dropping off? Kind of like just like the 107 certs, it was a 2-year roll, and now the numbers are actually down for the people that got, recertified.
Yeah.
So interesting. We'll have to make sure that we remember that in 2 years. Well, 1 and 2 years, right? To do that comparison.
Yeah. So maybe digging in a little bit. So now we're just talking 2019 now. So no more comparisons to previous years. We wanted to highlight these regulations that like really took big surges, right? Like who are the companies getting these? Is it still these big companies? Is it smaller companies? Maybe research universities, so on. So we made a list. We're not going to go through this. But certainly go to our website and look. We made a list of all the companies that got BV loss waivers, right? That's 107, 31, and 33.
Right.
And what are some of the insights out of this, Brent? What are you seeing?
So yeah, if we're taking a look at this list as a whole, the types of people that are getting these 107.31s and 107.33s are not the individual. They're not the one-off drone pilot running his or her, solo company. It's large organizations, departments of transportation, Honeywell's in there. You have UPS, so all the names in here. We do have one person that has their name explicitly in here, which is Lucas Fisher. But
we're on to you.
Yeah, most likely he's in charge of Uber's waiver there. So
yeah, head of flight ops. So we're on to you, Lucas. You can't.
Yeah, he's trying to be secretive, but just look it up, and yeah, there's an address and everything in there. It's San Diego, and maybe a quick LinkedIn search will help you figure out who Lucas actually is.
Yeah.
But in general, this is like the big leagues, right? The 107.31 and 107.33s, they're difficult to get. They take a lot of time, money, and resources. And you really have to be bought into the commitment when you're going to go down this path, because it's a lot of back and forth with the FAA. You can guarantee that the relationships here in this list with the FAA are definitely there. It's just not simply a one-way street where you submit and then the FAA approves or denies. There's lots of conversation going on here. So.
And we kind of broke the list down into like the groups, the industry types. So the FAA has a lot of programs, of course, and that's a big part of who is on this list. So we have like FAA UAS test sites. We have integration pilot program partners. A lot of those drone delivery guys are in that, like Flirty and UPS and Flytrax, yeah, Uber. I mean, a lot of guys in that. We have, like you said, Brent, federal, state, and local governments. So like DOTs. We have Massachusetts DOT in there. A lot of drone delivery guys. That was pretty hot in 2019 as that kind of surges. And then energy companies, actually. So it's really great to see a couple industries like really taking hold of this and pushing things forward. So
right. So yeah, we encourage you to go to our website to take a look at these stats. It's a picture's worth 1,000 words, and that's what we have showing here. And that big chunk. There's really three dominating pieces. It's the energy companies, the integration pilot program, and federal, state, and local government. Yeah, drone delivery is picking up the rest of that, but. Those are the three cores that are behind the BVLOS waiver. And it totally makes sense, right? Because it's an advanced level, it's an advanced operation, and there really needs to be a lot of, due diligence behind submitting these waivers. Like there's a lot to it. It's, think of 107.29 as like kindergarten for waivers, and then the 107.31.33s is like your PhD thesis, it's so that's really how you have to measure this, and that's why these people are there, is because they're the PhDs of the waivers, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So try to relate it to some like what is the scale here, right? Why? Because a lot of we hear a lot of people, they want to fly BVLOS, but it's like, hey, whoa, step back. Do you realize the effort that goes into this? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, it's actually a good point worth mentioning too. Some of these are still what we call like daisy chain visual observers. So they're actually, even in this category, there's like a differentiation. There's some that are daisy chain visual observers, which let's call, if you say PhD, let's call that like your bachelor's degree. The PhD ones, I hate using the word like true beyond visual line of sight, where there is actually nobody physically watching the aircraft. There actually are a couple of those on here. And those are really like the PhD ones, where you start using technology like radars and really reliable C2 links and so on. So, I know like Alaska got some of those, Northern Plains US Test Site got some of those, Wing's been doing some of that. So yeah, even in this group, there's kind of a two tiers, right? Yeah. So
by far, right, visual observer is the cheapest technology, human technology that you can use to extend your line of sight, because those Echodyne radars and everything else, Iris and what have you, it's a little bit more expensive to electronically deconflict versus still using that person out there.
Yeah. So how about the other waivers? So we picked out a couple other categories here. Such as 107.35, that's operations of multiples. Maybe
multiple
the interesting,
US,
Yeah, multiple UAS. Yep. So one to many.
Yep.
So maybe the interesting on this list, it's not very many, but a lot of like hardware companies. I noticed. So, which kind of makes sense. Any other notes on that one, Brent, that you saw?
No, but you know what I would like to see? I would like to see 107.35 take an increase in 2020. I think the technology is there. You know, when we're looking at those waivers, we're kind of dissecting, you know, what are the restrictions and the provisions. I think there's some room here for some excellent things to be happening in 2020 with drone light shows specifically, and swarming efforts as a whole. You know, so keep an eye on that. Even though that list is small and that number was relatively small, I do think that is a part of the industry that probably will start growing, because there's going to be a use once more of these waivers come out. People will find better uses for multiple drones operating at one time with one pilot.
It's like one of the cornerstones of what can make drones like super efficient and useful, right? Is not having to do 1-to-1 every time. Like just once they're highly autonomous, you just let them loose. Yeah, that sounds terrible, but
yeah. So, well, let's just look at this too. Like outside of drone light shows, there's 3 companies in there that are specifically drone delivery companies: Wing, Fleerty, and Zipline. Okay, so hand in hand with drone delivery, if you want to reach mass scale, like this is a waiver that you also need to get. Not only do you have to have BV loss, type cert, all that stuff, right? But and actually, so hold on, are they even going to be in 107 as drone delivery?
Yeah, probably not. But at least they're still going to have to get like a waiver to that, right? Because even manned aviation, you know, they don't control multiple jets with one pilot, right? So
right.
Still be a similar waiver probably.
Right. You can't hop from one Boeing 747 to the other in midair, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, so interesting enough, so like drone light shows and drone delivery, right? Or anything essentially that you want to put a drone in the air and scale it. 107.35 is what you need. And it is obtainable. You know, there's some, site restrictions that are helping these waivers get granted. So it's not a free for all, like you can go operate, wherever you want, however you want. There are some provisions, again, because as the waivers get more advanced, you have to dial in your risk. So let's jump to that 107.51B, which is that altitude.
Yeah, so this is kind of it's a pretty long list, and it's actually it's a really interesting assortment of people getting these. I think I see like a lot of colleges on the list and like research organizations like MITRE. So it seems like there's like a lot of research going on at higher altitudes, but there's still a couple like Intel's on there. We have Black Swift Technologies. They're an autopilot company, so. Really just mining companies, we've hit on that one before. So kind of an interesting group getting those. Yeah. So, and I mean, what do you think like 107.51B, like the level, what's the hardness level of that one to obtain that waiver? So let's go back. Okay, go back to the kindergarten and PhD levels, I guess. I would say that's, middle school to high school.
Yeah, I would certainly agree.
Yeah. It's not terrible. It's actually pretty straightforward, but you do have to, you certainly have to be visible for 3 miles, have a light on. You do have to restrict yourself to a certain area. But if you look at the waivers, they're actually like pretty straightforward. Like some of these BV loss waivers are like 40 provisions. I think the high altitude ones are usually 20 or less. Yep. So.
And the mining companies, right, that are taking advantage of this higher altitude, like these are open pits, and you have this huge dip. So it's actually not really that bad to increase your altitude if you're counting that at the bottom of your pit versus the normal ground level.
Yeah, we talked about this last week a little bit.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, I think you hit it right on the head there. Like it's like high school level ish for this waiver. We should almost have like a ranking scale, like like kindergarten, middle school, everything.
Maybe
senior design project.
Maybe we'll think of something like just make up a word like Geiger, and just have like this kind of abstract level. It's I don't know, a waiver number 3 level. I'll think of a word.
And then, should we...
We kind of hit the 107.39 already, right?
Yeah.
But it's just worth mentioning again, I mean, the growth there. So the ASTM F3322 standard came out kind of middle of the year, and that enabled parachute companies to essentially meet a standard, which then allowed the FAA to go, hey, actually that parachute meets a standard, and that's something that we know is reliable and triggers. The standard the interesting thing, the standard doesn't hit the risk level of hitting somebody necessarily. The standard is about having a repeatable, reliable product that'll trigger like every time. That's kind of interesting. But
and it's like the test to get ASTM cert is performed 45 times, right? 45 individual tests.
Yeah.
And there are, some free falls, some full speeds, critical motor loss. So the testing is like pretty robust. So like Jakee's saying, it's the repeatable, like the ASTM standard was built so that it almost covers, every situation you could think of that you could put your drone into. And then you have to test this repeatably 5 times in some cases it's not 5, but in general it's 5 tests. Is it 45 or 46?
Yeah, close enough either way, right?
Yeah. So anyways, but there's
mid-40s.
Yeah, you have to beat these tests successfully and on a consistent basis. And if you fail the test, like say you're in your run and you have 2 of 3, right? You have to restart that section of tests. You don't have to start the whole list, but if you fail a certain configuration, you have to redo it until you have 5 repeatable, successful deployments of that parachute.
Yep.
So
then where the injury probability comes in, or the risk. So parachute deploys, drone's coming down. Let's say it still hits somebody. There was a lot of research in that as well from the Assure team. So they put out a final report also last year on ground collision risk, and they looked at all different types of kinetic energy levels and what risk that would be to a human from blunt impact on the head or neck injury or lacerations from the props. So really those two, the ASTM standard and the Assure research kind of came together at the same time, and it actually gave some data for the FAA to go, yeah, we can improve this. This is safe. So
for sure.
So kind of cool.
So to close it out on this will be our
favorite waivers. So couldn't go a year without picking our favorite waivers, right? So it's like Brent, we each got to pick one, which is kind of challenging. There's some good ones this year, but got to pick it down to one. So we each picked one. I'll go first. My favorite waiver of the year went to Zipline International Inc. 107W-2019-01979, so kind of an early one of the year. So why do I think this waiver is awesome? It was to 107.29, 3.1, 3.3, and 3.5. So
the list is long.
Yeah, so I mean, got a lot of regulations waived here, so you can tell this is already kind of an advanced op. But they got 107.35, which we kind of talked about that already. That's just a great use of this technology. So I'm glad that they're looking at one-to-many and really scaling up and being efficient with their operations. It adds beyond visual line of sight, so that's 3.3 and 3.1. This is a daisy chain one, so it's not quite PhD level, but still these are challenging to get. So I'm glad to see that they're kind of pushing forward on the beyond visual line of sight work. And then finally, just Zipline is just such a cool company to me. They've really stood the test of time over the years. They've been doing amazing work in Rwanda, delivering medical samples, blood, and so on. So they're laser focused on that mission of saving lives, and they're really starting to kind of scale up in the U.S. with the integration pod program. So just really excited to see them grow and continue their important mission of saving lives and delivering medical samples. So that's why I think that waiver is awesome.
Yeah, definitely is a good one. There's 4 waivers or 4 regulations waived in that single waiver. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, on to mine. Mine is a little less eventful as far as numbers of regulations waived. So my waiver that is my favorite is 107W 2019 04978. And it is by Noah. So, and Commander Jonathan Newhouse is the one that wrote it. And it is for 107.51C and 51D, which is the weather minimums. So the first portion is 107.51C, which is operation of limitations for unmanned aircraft with visibility. So that 3 statute miles. And 107.51D is operating near clouds. So what is actually waived in this waiver? So 100% 107.51D cloud clearance waived. So you can fly into the cloud, next to the cloud, whatever, below it, above it, anything like that. However, you still have to maintain the 107 other regulations outside of 51C and D that are waived. And then the C portion, 107.51C, that is waived. It actually moves the restriction from 3 statute miles down to 1 statute mile of visibility. So can't operate in 0 visibility conditions. 1 mile is still a fair distance, right? And as always, because they're operating on 107 rules, they have to maintain non-hazardous operations. So even though they've restricted their or decreased their visibility, they still need to make sure that they're operating safely. But another big portion of why I like this is because I did a little background research on Commander Newhouse here, and he is a well-decorated manned and unmanned pilot from, it's amazing actually. So he flies King Airs, Twin Otters, Citation 2, and for unmanned, he is on the bigs of the bigs, which is the Global Hawk. It is an amazing aircraft. He flies for NASA. So it only makes sense that he is well tied into NOAA's UAS program. So what's funny is that he is so used to flying these big aircraft, manned and unmanned. I mean, the unmanned aircraft that he flies is also somewhat bigger than his, the aircraft.
It's probably the biggest one.
Yeah. So which is absolutely crazy. Think about that, right? He's flying the Global Hawk unmanned. So go ahead and Google Global Hawk because it's amazing. Maybe you can see on a runway, you'll see the wingspan goes past. I have some of these pictures where the wingspan is actually over off into the grass, and the paved runways. So it's a very unique bird. And the fact that, he is down here operating small unmanned aircraft under 55 pounds with these, visibility and cloud, waivers, it's just amazing. So the waiver is also centered around an island. So this is specifically like for research. So NOAA is doing research on, sea animals, birds, mammals that are around this island. Maybe they're looking at shoreline issues, coral, things like that, reefs, everything like that. So, we'll have to dig in a little bit more. I'm actually more interested now to find out what they actually are doing here for research for NOAA. And but anyways, so there's kind of two parts to that waiver why I like it. Number one, the person behind it is a well-decorated manned and unmanned pilot, and 2, it's really restricting or alleviating the restrictions of weather. So that's a challenging one to get because being able to see things and deconflict yourself with manned aircraft is why we have 3 statute mile visibility requirements plus the cloud clearances, 2,000 horizontally, 500 below. So they're wiping that out, but yeah. So I like that one.
Yeah, we can't tell if small UAS is like boring for him because of all the other stuff he flies, or maybe it's cool because he gets to like go out on a boat, and like fly, in the Pacific Ocean.
Right, and it's a change of pace for sure, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, Commander Newhouse is operating from smallest to bigs, manned and unmanned. He is the one-stop shop for all things flying.
Yeah, no doubt.
So cool. Yeah, maybe he's listening. We can interview him sometime. I think that'd be a worthwhile interview, I think.
Yeah.
So very cool.
Well, wrap up. So final insights.
Final insights. Yeah, I mean, 2020, I believe, will be the year that really increases the advanced waivers. So outside of 107.29, the night waivers just taking, precedence over everything for the numbers, I really do think that, the 107.35s are going to increase. These daisy chain visual observers will start increasing. Hopefully some other mines will be looking at the altitude restrictions. So I really feel that we finally, as an industry, have kind of gotten into our lanes and figured out what we're comfortable with. And now that people are testing the boundaries with these other advanced operations, I think that 2020 is the year that we'll see, night waivers kind of dwindle a little bit and these other waivers start, increasing in numbers.
Yeah, might be a lot of night waiver renewals, like we were saying, but
2021.
Yeah. But so one of the big FA programs ends this year, the Integration Pilot Program, and certainly that program accounted for a lot of the advanced waivers this year that we kind of talked about. So it'll be interesting to me to see what happens when that closes.
Right.
They start gathering all the final reports, kind of lessons learned, and see if they'll be able to kind of transition all that into, sort of opening the gates a little bit for the rest of the industry. I think that'll be interesting to me to see. So yeah, hopefully I agree. Hopefully we see more of the advanced to just keep pushing this forward. So
yeah, super good point. So let these IPPs wrap up. Let's get those reports put in. Let's let the FAA take a look, and all that data that they've been collecting underneath this special program. It's the point of that IPP was to enable operations to push the boundaries. So hopefully the little guys can start reaping the benefits from all of that hard work that the companies have been doing in the IPP. Absolutely.
All right. Great place to stop. Thanks for joining us on 2019 Waiver Review.
Yeah. And until next time, fly safe.
Fly safe.
Take care.